Hi guys, my name is Elsie.
My name is JT.
And welcome to F1 for Beginners episode 4. Now in this episode we're going to talk about the drivers and the teams in Formula 1, give you a quick history of the teams. Now the first team to talk about is the team that are on top at the moment, is Mercedes F1. Now you might have heard them associated with one driver, British driver Lewis Hamilton, who is a 3-time world champion. Now he came to Mercedes in 2013, won his championships in 14 and 15. So he is a quick history of Mercedes because obviously they'll have a history that I'm sure a lot of people don't know, but obviously will be very be very exciting to know about. Now, there's one driver that you probably heard in the history, and that is a driver called Fangio. Now he was a driver for Mercedes back in 1954 when Mercedes were in the sport for the very first time. Now this driver Fangio really shaped Formula 1. Now probably give it its biggest name. Would you agree, JT?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Obviously, he was like the first big name in Formula 1. He won 5 championships.
Yeah.
He is regarded as one of the best of all time.
He is. He's unbelievable. So he really shaped Formula 1. So Mercedes were in Formula 1 for 2 seasons. They withdrew at the end of 1955, the 1955 season, following a crash which injured drivers and spectators. And then there was a massive gap. It's 55 years until 2010. Obviously, the German team made its return into Formula 1 with 2 German drivers, Nico Rosberg and Michael Schumacher, the 7-time world champion Michael Schumacher. They have been in Formula 1 for 6 years, since 2010, doing absolutely fantastic, winning just multiple races, dominating and winning back-to-back Constructors' World Championships. So absolutely fantastic by them. They're the team on top, as JT will be able to tell you, and they are unbelievable. So they are the first team, dominated 14 and 15. By the way, 14 was such a shock, as I say, from I'm going to do math here. So since 1955 to 2014, they have, is that 59 years? I think that's right. So for 59 years, they haven't had a Constructors' Championship win. Now they have. So that's Mercedes, the first team to mention, the most successful on the grid at the moment.
Yep. Next up, we are going to be talking about Ferrari, the longest serving team in Formula 1 at the moment, the one with the most history. They've had 910 race starts since the very first, the inaugural season in 1950, when it was called Formula 1. Now, Ferrari is, like I said, the most successful team in all Formula 1. Won 16 Constructors' Championships and 15 Drivers' Championship. I mean, this team has got a massive legacy in Formula 1. When you hear the word Formula 1, you immediately think Ferrari. When you hear Ferrari, you think Formula 1. Now, the current drivers as well, you've got 2 drivers, both world champions, a combined total of 5 world champions between them. It's Sebastian Vettel, car number 5, and Kimi Räikkönen, car number 7, is their second driver. Recently, however, Ferrari haven't really been to where they were. I mean, at the start of the new decade, of the new century, sorry, in the 21st century, they dominated from 2000 to 2004. As like Elsie said about Michael Schumacher, the most successful driver in Formula 1, he won 5 of his 7 world championships with Ferrari, dominating every single one of them, and just really took Ferrari from a competitive team to a really high team. Obviously, their last Constructors' win was in 2008. Year Lewis Hamilton won his world championship. Unfortunately, they didn't win the Constructors. Ferrari did under Felipe Massa. The last Drivers' World Championship they won was in 2007 with their current driver Kimi Räikkönen, who dropped out of Formula 1 in 2009 and then returned to Formula 1 in 2012. Then rejoined Ferrari in the 2014 season. Their current president, or the current manager, Maurizio Arriva-Ben, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's currently brought Ferrari into a big part now where they are competing as well. So they are on better ground, but that is pretty much Ferrari. Everything you need to know about Ferrari from it.
Yep. Ferrari are a fantastic team, and you are so right. You think of Ferrari when you think of Ferrari.
Their very first race was 1950 at the Monaco Grand Prix, by the way. I must add that.
Thank you for that, JT. Now, the third team we're going to mention is a very new, not a very new team, but compared to Ferrari, it's a team that I'm wearing. It's Red Bull Racing. Now, Red Bull Racing made its debut in 2005 and came in with 2 drivers: Austrian driver Christian Klein and Scottish driver David Coulthard. Red Bull were taken over from Jaguar, and they were a team to make a print on Formula One, I would say very, very, very soon. Now, I'd say that their most successful year was 2009 with Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel taking a few wins in 2009. This was his first season with Red Bull since he won in his Italian Grand Prix in their junior team Toro Rosso, which we're going to mention later on in the video. But obviously, nobody could, and I'm sure everyone knows this man's name. He's now at Ferrari, but when he was at Red Bull, he won 4 back-to-back World Championships. So did the team, back-to-back Constructors' Championships, Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel, when he was at Red Bull, his stint from 2009 to 2014, he won 4 in 2010, 11, 12 and 13. His most successful years were probably 2011 and 2013, where he basically, I mean, no one could get close to him, and JT will know because he was there, he was watching the races. No one could get close in the slightest to Sebastian Vettel. His teammate, Australian driver Mark Webber, had a good season, but unfortunately it wasn't as good as Sebastian Vettel's. Mark won the Monaco Grand Prix twice with Red Bull, and yeah, it was an up and down season, but obviously, like how we're seeing with Lewis and Nico at the moment, they were fought quite a bit. Turkey 2010, they collided. Britain 2011, Turkey 2012, they had disputes. Everyone in Formula 1, everyone outside Formula 1, I'd be very impressed if you did, knows the incident which happened in Malaysia 2013, which is commonly now known as Multi 21. Everyone should know that. He left Red Bull in 2014 for Australian driver Daniel Ricciardo and Russian driver Daniel Kvyat. No, sorry, for 2015. He was there in 2014 but struggled. That's why he left for Ferrari. Now it's Australian driver Daniel Ricciardo and Russian driver Daniel Kvyat, both fighting it out in the Red Bulls. They probably aren't on form as they were in Vettel's championship winning years, but I would say, and I hope, that they're on the fight back to the top. Thanks, JT.
Definitely. I mean, obviously Red Bull, massive legacy in recent Formula One. Obviously not in early Formula One, but definitely a team to remember. Now, next team we are going to talk about is my team I follow, McLaren. And where do we even begin with McLaren?
I don't know.
So much history in Formula One. I mean, their first race was 1966 at Monaco. They haven't been in since the start, but they are one of the oldest teams. I think they are the second oldest team in Formula One currently. And obviously a massive legacy. In the most dominant time, I would say the 80s, probably regarded as one of the best F1 drivers of all time. Ayrton Senna won all 3 of his championships in a McLaren. They were founded by a driver, Bruce McLaren, a guy from New Zealand who built and made his own cars, and eventually made his own team. He drove for a McLaren, unfortunately, until he died in a McLaren in a Grand Prix, which obviously kind of like, would McLaren be continued? Obviously, ever since then, it has continued in Formula 1 under his name. They've got 8 constructors and 12 drivers' championship titles. The last one, the constructors, being in 1998, and the last drivers' world championship being 2008 under Lewis Hamilton. They would have won the constructors' championship in 2008, but unfortunately, a bit of dispute went on with them and Ferrari about some spying allegations, which then got McLaren forced to kick out of Formula 1 of the constructors' championships, which allowed, as like I said before, Ferrari to win the the constructors' championship in 2008. They've had 788 race starts. Their current drivers: Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button. Again, a combined championship total of 3. Fernando having 2, Jenson having 1. They haven't had as good recent times as they had. Obviously, when Senna was racing, they had McLaren Honda. And that's when they dominated Formula 1. They left in 1992 for Mercedes powered cars, which then Honda came back with McLaren in 2015, and it just hasn't worked in recent times. The team really struggling right now. No sponsorships, drivers unhappy and stuff like that. Staff everywhere at the moment. A team in the right mess, but a team with a lot. I mean, a very good history, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, JT. That was a very good rundown. Next thing we're going to talk about is related to Red Bull, and it was created as a junior program for Red Bull Race, and it's called Toro Rosso. Now, something that I found out, which I mean, I never did Italian at school, but Toro Rosso actually is Red Bull in Italian. It is an Italian team. Now, it was obviously, it's an Italian team. Its headquarters are in Italy, but it was created by Red Bull. It's owned by Dietrich Mateschitz, who is the owner of Red Bull. It was created as almost like a junior program. Now they kicked off in 2006, a year after Red Bull Racing did. Now they were a team to almost train their drivers, their junior drivers, to move up into the big leagues. Now they didn't really have much success until, as I say, Sebastian Vettel in 2008. Now this is when Toro Rosso, I'd say, they took off for the better. Now Sebastian Vettel in 2008 won the Italian Grand Prix, which was in the rain. Now this was thought when he did it to be one of the best races ever, especially for a team and a driver who was so new into the sport, because it's the rainy race, and he was beating some of the best drivers in Formula One. Fernando Alonso, Felipe Massa, Lewis Hamilton, obviously, who went on to win that year the championship. So it was an amazing race for them. Then, obviously, as Sebastian moved on to Red Bull, that's been their aim, and they have succeeded. I'd say their more successful drivers to move up have been Sebastian Vettel, and more recently Daniel Ricciardo of the Australian driver who was in the Red Bull seat. Obviously Daniel Kvyat, he moved through Toro Rosso. So really the two drivers at the moment who were in Red Bull have been working as Toro Rosso. So they were created as a junior program, but as me and JT have discussed in videos previous, and we are going to make a new video about this, Toro Rosso's relationship with Red Bull, there isn't really a relationship, and obviously I know we're not going to go into too much about it. This was why they were originally created, but nowadays, are they really? And they're two drivers of Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. They aren't junior drivers. It's not like they want to be mentored into Red Bull. But as I say, we're not going to get too much into that. Toro Rosso are still around as Red Bull junior customers, but will they be for much longer? And do people associate Toro Rosso with Red Bull? So anyway, that's the end of Toro Rosso. Thanks, JT.
No problem at all. Next thing that we're going to talk about is probably the most confusing team that we can probably talk about in this episode is Renault. Now, Renault first joined Formula 1 in 1977, both as an engine supplier and as a team. And obviously they had loads of different customers up until the point where they withdrew from the sport in 1985. But they still supplied engines for the teams. Obviously, they weren't a full team itself. Now, they returned to the sport in the year 2000, filling in for Benetton, or supplying for Benetton, and obviously came into the sport as Renault Formula 1 team. The only success, though, was in 2005 and 2006, where they both won the drivers and constructors back-to-back with Fernando Alonso, which is probably definitely their highest peak of Formula 1. Obviously, winning those two from, when it was obviously possible, that type of thing. They then withdrew from the sport in 2010 under the name which then became Lotus, but then they just came back into Formula 1 this season. Obviously, by the way, they've always been supplying engines since they introduced it in 1977. I think the first race was the British Grand Prix that they did in 77. But they've always supplied engines for, most famously, Red Bull, dominating in recent times. They've won loads of constructors' titles in terms of engines as well, but as a team, they've only won two. Which is a bit of a shame, obviously supplying with their engine success. The team now, obviously they've got a lovely yellow livery, which is obviously a big thing in terms of Renault. They've always had some sort of yellow thing within their car, whether it be yellow and blue, yellow and black, yellow and white, or just plain basic yellow, that type of thing. So when you think of yellow, you think of Renault. Current drivers now are Kevin Magnussen and Jolyon Palmer. This is Jolyon Palmer's first season. This is Kevin Magnussen's second season formally with McLaren. They've had 305 race entries, and obviously they could have a bit better of a history as a team, but as an engine supplier, I would definitely say one of the best, even though they are French. And as we all know, if you are a car fan, you will know how bad French cars are. No offence if you are French, but that's how it is. LC?
Yeah, thank you, JC. Now the next team we're going to talk about is again a very new team, and a team that is so in the middle of the field. It's Force India. Now this team was bought by an Indian tycoon called Vijay Mallya in 2005. He bought it off Eddie Jordan, who ran obviously Jordan F1, and then also took over from a one-shot wonder team called Spiker. So Force India were in the 2008 season. and onwards. Now, they had a really up and down season. Obviously, many drivers, including Giancarlo Fisichella, Paul di Resta, Nico Hülkenberg, Adrian Sutil, really up and down at the moment. Now, there are two drivers at the moment, Nico Hülkenberg from Germany and Mexico's Sergio Perez, or Checo as he's called, are really battling out in the midfield. Now, Force India's where they want to go is really unknown. I think they haven't really made a massive impression on the sport, apart from they've had a few podiums here and there. Tracks to normally suit them, things like Spa, Bahrain, Silverstone. I mean, really, it's anywhere. Obviously, when they used to run the Indian Grand Prix, obviously again that was somewhere that especially Vijay Mallya wanted to impress. Obviously, being Force India, the only team on the grid from India at the moment. So it's really unclear where Force India want to go at the moment, but obviously they're a midfield team, a team for us to watch, two drivers for us to watch. Are they a junior program for other teams? Well, obviously we know that German driver Nico Hülkenberg wants to move on to different things. Sergio Perez, it was a save from him because he was at McLaren in 2013. Then he went to Force India, so obviously for him it was an improvement. But for Nico Hülkenberg, it's been one of his only teams. He's been at Force India, then he went to Sauber, then he came back to Force India. So really, as I say, their intentions are unknown, but Force India are a team looking like they're here to stay in Formula 1. JT?
Definitely. Obviously, as I said before, I do like Force India. They are a very high potential team, very good team, came in Formula 1. Have done very well as a team themselves. Now, next team we're going to talk about is one of the most successful behind Ferrari, is Williams. Now, Williams has a proper Formula 1 heritage. It's not a car supplier. It didn't start out as multi-millions. It was founded by two men one called Sir Frank Williams and another one called Sir Patrick Head. Now, those two basically formed as a partnership and decided to create the one to go into motorsport, into cars. Now, they did try some projects in the late 60s, early 70s. I think one of them was called Wolf Williams Racing, and another one I think was Frank Williams Motorsport Cars, I believe, in 69 to 75, I believe, around then, which kind of failed. Then they both emerged together to make Williams Formula 1, but now under Martini's Williams Formula 1 team. They've won 9 constructors titles and 7 drivers world championships. Most recently, the constructors was in 1997. Drivers again was 1997 with, I believe it was Jacques Villeneuve. Their last championship they've got. As I said, they haven't really had as much success in recent times. The most famous driver for them would be Ayrton Senna. Unfortunately, he did die in a car with this team. Unfortunately, we will talk about a lot more about Ayrton Senna if you want to know more about him. But this is the team where he sadly passed away with. The first Grand Prix was in 1977, the Spanish Grand Prix. They've had 640 starts as a constructor. They've had 140 victories, 128 pole positions, and 133 fastest laps, which proves how much how big of a team that they have been. Obviously, not in previous current times, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it wasn't as bad, but this is the team that has much respect for them. Obviously, he's still in the grid after all this time. Massive heritage, massive background. Jenson Button did start off with this team as well, so obviously Frank Williams for giving Jenson a chance. But so yeah, that is what I can say of Williams. A very dominant team, a very highly respected team.
Yep.
I want to remember definitely. I'll say.
Yeah. An amazing team. Right, we're going to move on to the newest team on the grid. Now, one who has impressed, but it won't keep me talking for long, Haas. Now, Haas are an absolutely incredible team. Nobody really knew what they were about. No one knew really who they were. They were mentioned in They were mentioned after the 2014 US Grand Prix in Austin. Obviously, because they're an American team. Now, they were mentioned because their owner, or their CEO, Gene Haas from the United States of America, mentioned them at the US Grand Prix, and they finally came in 2016 as a brand new team. Now, obviously, they're the only team from the United States of America, which is fantastic. One of the richest nations and one of the biggest nations on the world, in the world. Obviously, very successful with motor racing, including their Indy cars, and obviously NASCAR, which has it's not a worldwide sport, but obviously in terms of in America, it's a massive sport. It goes all around the United States of America. The Daytona 500 is almost as famous as the Super Bowl. So absolutely unbelievable for them. Their two drivers at the moment are French driver Romain Grosjean, who came from Lotus Renault, and then Esteban Gutierrez, who came from a year out and then a year at Sauber in his previous year in Formula One. Now, now Esteban hasn't really performed, but Romain Grosjean has 2 points finishes in Australia and Bahrain, which obviously has definitely shocked in a good way. Given positive, constructive work to Gene Haas and everyone else in the pit in the garage. A lot of Americans will have been in there, people who will have been in NASCAR, behind the NASCAR production, and I think, well, Formula One, it's a new sport, it's a global sport. Obviously, moving east from America, what are we going to do in Formula One? And they have really done it. So Haas, in their first 2 races ever in Formula One, have really impressed. And one stat that I always mention, in Australia, Romain Grosjean had his points finish. They have broken the record that Toyota set in 2002 with a Finnish driver called Mika Salo, where he finished in the points, a brand new team, and they have beaten that record. So fantastic. Haas, as I say, the only team from the USA, absolutely unbelievable. JT?
Yeah, thank you very much, Elsie. I mean, I'm very excited for Haas myself. Can't wait to see what they throw up in the future. Now, this team I'm going to bring up to next has, a bit of in and out. It hasn't really had much success. It's probably the newest team I'm going to mention on my side. It's a team that I'm wearing currently now. It's not called Marussia anymore. It's called Manor. It's called Manor Motorsports. Now, this team originally started out in the Virgin race in 2010 up until 2011. Now, Richard Branson, obviously, you probably would have heard Richard Branson, obviously owner of a Virgin Records, Virgin Atlantic, the Virgin brand of whatever. Bought a team in Formula One. He's obviously didn't really see much investment in it. Left. In came Marussia. In 2012 up until 2014. Obviously financial troubles sort of plagued them a little bit, and they nearly very went extinct, a bit like Caterham and HRT, which were 2 teams who formed in the same season in 2010, who unfortunately won. I think HRT retired in 2012, as did Caterham in 2014. They all went bankrupt. Marussia or Manor did very nearly the same thing. They were saved at the last minute. They eventually got in for the 2015 Australian Grand Prix, but they had the 2014 car. So they lack power. But this season, under the name Manor Motorsport, which actually started out in 1990, they've just sort of worked their way up the ranks, the lower formulas as teams, up until they joined partnership with Marussia. I think it's about 2011, 2012. They sort of had their name on the car, as well as still having like a GP3 team. I mean, the likes of Kimi Räikkönen and Lewis Hamilton all raced. Then they won championships with them. About 2000, 2003, 2004, that year when they were come through the ranks. So Manor has history in the lower stages of Formula One, not so much at the biggest stage. Obviously, currently now they are doing all right. They've got a better car. They actually are competitive this season. Manor are. Obviously, they have chopped and changed names. Financial trouble is still not strong as present. Obviously, the value for them, their most known. They could still have 2 known moments because this team has only scored points on one occasion. That was most famously in 2014 in Monaco, with the late Jules Bianchi, who scored 2 points for the team, which is massive then because this team can't score points. The car's bad, financial trouble is bad. They have no money to invest in the car to make it competitive. And unfortunately, he was taken away from us, sadly, when he crashed in 2014 in October at the Japanese Grand Prix. Then sadly died just before the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2015. So it is good that this team is still going under the name of Bianchi. Carrying with his legacy. This is why I bought the shirt in memory of him. This is the 2014 shirt. And so this team, bear in mind they're all such a small team, and they haven't really done much in Formula 1, they haven't won any races or constructors. There's still a lot to talk about with this team, which is good. And this is certainly a team that I'm really looking forward to this season, maybe many more seasons to come, provided they do well and get some good financial backing.
Yeah.
Elsie?
Just on Russia or Manor, I remember Graham Loudon, who was the team principal, who stepped down for this season. I remember when he was talking about Jules Bianchi in the transition between 2014 and 2015, and also after his death. And it was saying that he felt it was an obligation by him and the team, almost as a mark out of Jules's, as a mark of respect to Jules, that they wanted to get back on the grid. And it's amazing as well. They're a team with so little behind them, and they're forced to get back on the grid. Obviously, as we said, late 2014, the financial troubles for Caterham and Manor, or Russia, as they were called then, didn't help after the situation, and they fought to get back on the team. Yeah. Anyway, so the very last team we're going to mention is a Swiss team called Sauber. Now, they first made their introduction in 1993 with JJ Lehto at the South African Grand Prix. Now, they were around for, obviously, since present day, but they didn't really make the stand until very, very late in Formula One. Through the very early 2000s, they were sponsored by Red Bull and Petronas, who have now gone on, obviously Red Bull Racing, and then Petronas with Mercedes, and they haven't really made too much of noise in Formula One at the moment. As I say, they're a bit like Force India midfield teams. At the moment, they have two drivers, Marcus Ericsson of Sweden and Felipe Nasr of Brazil, the second Brazilian on the Formula 1 grid at the moment, next to Felipe Massa. Not going too much at the moment, especially with two drivers who, I mean, they have been in Formula 1 at the moment. Obviously, Marcus Ericsson came from Caterham, Felipe Nasr one season with Sauber at the moment, but they haven't really gone too much far. It's a bit like Force India, JT. I can't really say, what's going to happen to Sauber in the future. I do hope, though, that they are. I mean, we do know that they're a stepping stone. Obviously, Kimi Räikkönen was a Sauber driver in 2000, I believe. So they are a stepping stone for drivers, much like Force India want to be. And obviously, I know, a bit like Force India, I know that their two drivers, Marcus Ericsson and Felipe Nasr, want to go on and do amazing things in Formula 1. Marcus, I'm not sure, but I know that Felipe wants to go on and imitate almost his other Felipe, his big brother in Formula 1, Felipe Massa, go to Ferrari and achieve great things. Right, so obviously that was the teams on the grid at the moment. We mentioned the drivers, the history of the teams, so that was amazing. I hope you really enjoyed this video. It's been a very intellectual video, obviously hopefully that we've told you in a very brief and fun way about the teams in Formula 1. So when you're watching the Grand Prix next, you can say, I know about them, I know the history, blah, blah, blah. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this episode. Also, if you have anything to add, please leave your comments in the comment section on YouTube and also on Facebook. And also as well, if you like the F1 for Beginners, if you like our mini-series, please give us a thumbs up, give us a shout out, do all the things that we like, like and subscribe and tell your friends. So thanks for watching this episode, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, thank you very much. See you later, guys.